One morning, I awakened to learn that Uncle Hoskins had not come home from the saloon. Aunt Maggie fretted and worried. She wanted to visit the saloon and find out what had happened, but Uncle Hoskins had forbidden her to come to the place. The day wore on, and dinner time came. "I'm going to find out if anything's happened," Aunt Maggie said. "Maybe you oughtn't," my mother said. "Maybe it's dangerous." The food was kept hot on the stove, and Aunt Maggie stood on the front porch staring into the deepening dusk. Again she declared that she was going to the saloon, but my mother dissuaded her once more. It grew dark, and still he had not come. Aunt Maggie was silent and restless. "I hope to God the white people didn't bother him," she said. Later she went into the bedroom, and when she came out she whimpered, "He didn't take his gun. I wonder what could have happened." We ate in silence. An hour later there was a sound of heavy footsteps on the front porch, and a loud knock came. Aunt Maggie ran to the door and flung it open. A tall black boy stood sweating, panting, and shaking his head. He pulled off his cap. "Mr. Hoskins, he done been shot by a white man," the boy gasped. "Mr. Hoskins, he dead." Aunt Maggie screamed and rushed off the porch and down the dusty road into the night. "Maggie!" my mother screamed. "Don't you all go into that saloon," the boy called. "Maggie!" my mother called, running after Aunt Maggie. "They'll kill you if you go there," the boy yelled. "White folks said they'll kill his kinfolks." My mother pulled Aunt Maggie back into the house. Fear drowned out grief, and that night we packed clothes and dishes and loaded them into a farmer's wagon. Before dawn we were rolling away, fleeing for our lives. I learned afterwards that Uncle Hoskins had been killed by whites who had long coveted his flourishing liquor business. He had been threatened with death and warned many times to leave, but he had wanted to hold on a while longer to amass more money. We got rooms in West Helena, and Aunt Maggie and my mother kept huddled in the house all day and all night, afraid to be seen on the streets. Finally, Aunt Maggie defied her fear and made frequent trips back to Elaine, but she went in secret and at night and would tell no one save my mother when she was going. There was no funeral. There was no music. There was no period of mourning. There were no flowers. There were only silence, quiet weeping, whispers, and fear. I did not know when or where Uncle Hoskins was buried. Aunt Maggie was not even allowed to see his body, nor was she able to claim any of his assets. Uncle Hoskins had simply been plucked from our midst, and we, figuratively, had fallen on our faces to avoid looking into that white-hot face of terror that we knew loomed somewhere above us. This was as close as white terror had ever come to me, and in my mind reeled. Why had we not fought back, I asked my mother, and the fear that was in her made her slap me into silence. Shocked, frightened, alone, without their husbands or friends, my mother and Aunt Maggie lost faith in themselves, and, after much debate and hesitation, they decided to return home to Granny and rest, think, map out new plans for living.